We use markers in our classrooms to communicate with our dogs that they did something correctly. And this might be like taking a photograph of the behavior that you want. So if it's a sit, I have a picture of that dog's rear end touching the ground. That's the moment that I want to make sure that click happens. The moment that butt touches the ground, we click and we reward. If I want eye contact, it's the moment they make eye contact with me. So that timing is very important. So if we're using a verbal marker instead of our handy little clicker, there's some pros and cons to that. So advantage, I always have my voice. Unless I just went to a rock concert and was screaming my head off and I lost my voice, I typically will have my voice all the time. And so that I can use that voice wherever I am to mark behavior. The con is that I might have different tones that I'm using and I might not be as consistent. So if I'm saying yes, or I say yes, that might be different to the dog. If you have multiple people training your dogs in your household or your home, it's important that they're all consistently trying to use that same tone. With a clicker, that tone never changes. It's always the same. It's very consistent, and it's very precise. And I can hit this click and oftentimes have better timing using a clicker than I can using my voice. So that's a big advantage to using this. The cons of only training with a clicker is you always have to have it on you. Some dogs are a little afraid of how loud this clicker is. So if I still wanted to use a clicker, I might have to find an alternative, like a Bic pen or something, or clicking with my mouth, or finding something other. I can muffle this to make it a little quieter when I'm using it. So you might just have to play around with how it's going to be most effective with your dog. Students might, when we're in our classes, you're going to hear some students using marker words, you're going to have some using clickers, and then you might have that new student that's coming in and what am I supposed to do? Well, we can have them choose. We might teach them the clicker, and they might just find that it's very hard to use the clicker and to hold the leash and to deliver the treat, so that we can teach them a word instead. And they can find a balance of if that verbal marker works better for them. Personally, myself, I use clickers when I'm teaching something brand new and I need precision, and then I'll fade the clicker. I'll switch to verbal markers, so my dogs at my own home know clickers and they know verbal markers as well. So we're using classical conditioning to teach our dogs that when that happens, the predictive reinforcer is going to come after that, so they're going to get that treat. So whenever they hear this, they know that that treat is going to happen next. So we're classically conditioning that response. If you mark, whether that be a yes or a you owe, even if you didn't mean to do it, because we want to make sure that we're consistently reinforcing our dogs with that reinforcer after they hear that mark. So maybe we mistimed it or we ill-timed that mark. We still have to pay because we don't want our dogs to be confused as to why we clicked and we didn't give them a treat afterwards. These clickers here, they're not very good remote controls. So sometimes our students will try to use the clicker to get their dog's attention. So they're trying to use it in a way it wasn't designed to be used. So for example, a dog is staring out at some squirrels and they start barking and we say, and the dog runs back to us and we get the treat. Well, we might have taught the dog that barking at squirrels is a good thing. And they heard the click and we're going to get the treat. So next time they see squirrels, I'm going to do that again. So we just misused our clicker in a way that reinforced a behavior we didn't intend. It's also important to note that when I said it's not a remote control, we don't want to point these clickers at our dogs when we're using them. Like, good dog, good dog. That might be kind of scary. Instead, I kind of keep it away. Oftentimes, I'll even keep it behind my back while I'm using it. Using markers consistently can be difficult for owners to buy into. There's so much happening with a new student in a class or a student that trained a dog another way, they may not be completely sold on using markers. Do your best to reinforce and to demonstrate how they're used and how efficient they are at accelerating learning. But we don't want to get hung up on the fact that if they don't want to use them, it's not the end of the world. Their dogs are still going to learn. It just might not be the most ideal way for them to learn. Teaching students about reinforcers and conditioned reinforcers gets really complex, especially if you start throwing terms out about conditioned reinforcers and reinforcers. Don't use those terms. Use lay terms. Make it simple. Keep things simple for them. And whether you're talking about clickers or you're talking about loose leash walking, speak in ways that they can understand. When you're talking to myself or another trainer, yes, feel free to use all the scientific terms you want. But when we're talking to clients, make it easy for them to understand.